हेलो एंड वेलकम टू दिस एपिसोड ऑफ द प्रिंट माइंड ओवर मैटर। हम सब ने अपने गाड़ियों या घरों में एक बॉक्स रखा हुआ होता है जिसे हम फर्स्ट एड टूल बॉक्स कहते हैं। तो यूजुअली अगर आपको कोई चोट लग जाता है या कुछ भी हो जाता है तो इमीडिएट मेडिकल अटेंशन के लिए उसको हम यूज़ करते हैं बिफोर वी एक्चुअली गो टू अ डॉक्टर और वी रीच अ हॉस्पिटल। सो आज के एपिसोड में वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट मेंटल वेलनेस किट जो आप यूज़ कर सकते हो व्हेन देयर इज अ डिस्ट्रेस सिचुएशन, जो आप इमीडिएट अटेंशन उसको देना चाह रहे हो। बट हाउ डज अ मेंटल वेलनेस किट वर्क एंड उसमें आप क्या क्या रखोगे? क्योंकि अगर आप वैसे आप फर्स्ट एड किट देखेंगे तो अब हम डेटॉल होता है, कॉटन होता है, ऑल ऑफ दोज, बट क्लियरली इफ इट्स अ मेंटल वेलनेस किट देन दे आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी एग्जैक्टली थिंग्स लाइक दिस। बट आई एम नॉट द एक्सपर्ट, सो द एक्सपर्ट हियर इज अंजलि महालगे। वेलकम। शी इज काउंसलिंग साइकोलॉजिस्ट एंड शी इज गोइंग टू टेल अस मोर अबाउट कि ऐसे वेलनेस किट में हम क्या रख सकते हैं और उसे हम यूज़ कैसे कर सकते हैं। तो अंजलि, यूजुअली हम जब फर्स्ट एड किट यूज़ करते हैं तो जैसे मैं गिर गई हूँ कहीं पे, आई हैव स्क्रैप्ड माई नी एंड इज ब्लड, सो आई नीड इट ऑल वट एवर आई नीड। सो वॉट एग्जैक्टली आर इमोशनल वूंड्स और इमोशनल accidents for which we will actually need a mental health wellness kit?
Yeah, so there are certain moments in life and which comes with great distress, and in the language of psychology we call them anxiety attack, panic attack, and somebody going through a disaster. You know, there disasters happen all around the world all the time, and war situations also. We'll not go that far, but they are also situations of immediate attention. And then somebody going through a sexual abuse, physical abuse, or emotional abuse, and somebody trying to attempt suicide or is considering. So these are the moments, these are the accidents that we feel emotionally. So to address that, we will we'll more talk about what goes into the mental health well-being, mental health first aid kit.
Okay. So now that you've figured that there is a difference between emotional and physical wounds, so let's start with the basic. Tell us more about, okay, suppose for example, if I have an anxiety attack, so or if I see somebody having an anxiety attack, so what is the kind of immediate attention that can be given to that person?
Okay, before talking about the immediate attention or the first aid kit that we'll be talking about, we need to understand what is anxiety and panic attack.
Right.
So both anxiety and panic attack will have emotional as well as physical symptoms.
Right.
In the emotional symptoms, we'll have this feeling of impending doom, and that something is really going wrong in my life and something is going to go bad, and there is this heightened fear. There can be a little phobia about something. These are this is the person feeling all this fear emotionally. What could be the physical symptoms? So physical symptoms will have heart palpitations and short of breath, fast speed in breathing. You can notice it when the person is having irregular breaths. So these are anxiety and panic attack, but there is a little difference. In anxiety attack, it is generally because a person is having a prolonged anxiety crisis going on, and one fine day they will have something called an anxiety attack episode. While panic attack, as the name says, panic, it doesn't have a background as such, doesn't have to have a background. Some panic situation, some crisis situation, some situation where a person feel triggered and goes into a panic state, and that's when they experience panic attack. And then there is suicidal attempt. We all know what goes there, and sexual abuse and physical abuse victims. So how do we address these people who are suffering from this and who have gone through this emotional accident? First of all, we have to listen. We have to really do the reflective listening part. And reflective listening part is the most essential we have in therapeutic practice also. What do I mean by reflective listening is you listen to the person's need and you acknowledge from their words, like what do they need in that moment. After doing listening, we have to do the assessment of needs. What does this person need right now? So let's say somebody gone under assault, physical assault. They will need physical, attention with their wounds in that moment, and later on with the emotional well-being. So assessment and prioritization of these needs will come into place.
Right.
Yeah, and then providing them with intervention. If somebody is gone, somebody is having anxiety attack, the good way is to just let them talk, let them experience what they're experiencing, and hold space with them, show empathy, and probably if you can, help them with a little breathing and water. In that moment, it really helps. If you can just, we can do it right now, a little breathing exercise. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll do. So if you know a balloon, right? So we'll consider we have a balloon inside and a balloon outside.
Okay.
So take a long deep breath in and blowing the balloon outside. With the count of 3 or 4, if you can help this person with calming and creating an environment where they can trust and eventually open up.
Right.
And with this trust and opening up, they will have, you'll see that symptoms fading away bit by bit. And then eventually we can talk to this person what's going on and consider for therapy.
Okay. So I have this question, because you said that now this is something that a lot of women unfortunately experience in a city like ours.
Yeah.
And I remember there was an incident when I was walking and I was groped, right? Now, because assault often is an immediate unwanted physical contact, right?
Yeah.
And suppose I'm a friend who wants to reassure. One of the things that we often do is hugging somebody. But I wanted to actually understand, do you think this would be an actually appropriate response when somebody is in emotional distress? Or is that something that, because I feel like now, like over the years, we have seen as hugs are seen as very potent when it comes to, making somebody feel better. But then there is that element which we again don't talk about, which is the element of asking if it is okay to hug, because I feel like that's a conversation most of us, at least I don't remember having with anybody. Sometimes people just hug you because they think they're reassuring you, except in that moment that is actually causing more distress. So I actually just wanted to understand that if I want to help somebody, and maybe I feel like maybe the physical act of holding their hands, or maybe letting them hold my hand or giving a hug might be helpful, but how do I assess it? Like, is it a good way to ask them at that point? Because I might feel that, oh, this person is already under distress, should I ask? But just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, so it depends what kind of relationship you do share, first of all. And even if you share an intimate relationship which can translate into a romantic relationship or a familial relationship or sibling or anything, everyone have their own boundaries.
Right.
In that moment, the boundaries are almost, dismantled also. And somebody who's going under anxiety attack, panic attack, or any other crisis situation, they'll probably not be in a confused state emotionally. So it's always better to listen and then say, if you think that's wise, then you can always ask, do you want to be held? Will that make you better? So you can, before doing anything, you can ask, do you think we can try this? Do you think hugging right now will make you feel better? So this gives power to this person already. He or she is making the decision how they want to be helped. So I think that would be the way to go about it.
Okay. So because we've spoken it and we're talking, so these are tools, I'm understanding that these are tools that we are actually going to use to help somebody else, because somebody else is experiencing. So I want to know, suppose I am in a situation, I'm in a different city, let's say I'm going for work, and I experience it in the middle of somewhere, and everybody around me is a stranger, or maybe there's nobody around me, either of those two situations. And I want to, at least till I get to a place of safety that I feel is safe enough for my, mental well-being, I need to be able to navigate that immediate moment. If I'm in a public transport, if I'm, in a hotel, or wherever I'm at work. So how can I use such a kit for, let's say, myself?
Okay. It's going to be certainly challenging. So acknowledging that helping one own self is the most challenging thing to do.
Right.
And in that situation, if we have done some breathing activities, we have some knowledge of how breath can actually calm the mind. is going to be of great help. And there is something called a safety plan, which you can Google it, viewers can Google it and find a good source, which I would suggest if they can find NHS safety plan or any other, because I haven't seen much here. So safety plan will suggest ways, you know, when there will be a lot of confusion and panic, they can go back to it, read it, and it will have a step-by-step protocol of how they will help themselves.
Right. It's something like, just say, we often see in, let's say, halls, for example, there's this map for, you know, if there's something goes wrong, you're supposed to exit and follow this route. Is it something like that?
It is something like that. It's a piece of paper. Basically, it says, I'm going through distress right now, and this is how I'm going to feel better about it. This is going to pass in 10-15 minutes, and let me just sit down and breathe. Or if I have ice cold water, then splash some water on my face, then I'll sit down wherever I am. And you know, it will have these positive affirmations that somebody will hear it from the other, but they don't have the other right now, so they'll hear it from their own self, and which will be in a handy, you know, paper or a note in their phone. And then, of course, I cannot say enough about mindfulness and breathing in that moment.
Right. There's this other element that you said, that because you used the word affirmation. So for a lot of people, because it's very out there on social media at least, you know, affirmations and all. So, but I actually wanted to understand how crucial are affirmations, and how crucial are choosing affirmations, let's say for me particularly, if I am trying to, so this is immediate attention, I get it, right? But let's say, for example, if I am alone somewhere and, you know, I might have to be in that state for some time, and I know that maybe I have a history of having anxiety, or I have a history of, you know, generally not being great when it's alone. So I want to know if affirmations would help, and what kind of, how do we actually decide that these are the kind of affirmations that can be helpful for me? Or because a lot of people say, oh, you wake up in the morning, you say those, you go before, you do it before you go to, it's like a medical thing, no, that you pop a pill before. So I wanted to understand, is there a time for affirmations, or is there an actual one way of doing it?
There is no one way of doing anything,
right?
And affirmations, definitely not. But what is affirmation? So, you know, there is a lot of self-talk that continuously goes back into the mind,
right,
all the time, and it is because what we have heard through primary caregivers, and that's what shape our emotional response, our sense of self, and it shapes that, and automatically, you know, we behave in a certain way that we behave. So it's all comes back to what kind of emotional self-talk we have with ourselves. So affirmation is just self-talk, conscious self-talk. So, you know, somebody who's having a lot of confidence issues, probably in their life they have been told that you're not good enough, you can't do this, they have a critical parent or a teacher or bullied or anything. So they build themselves, you know, by saying that, you know, you're okay, you can do this, and it's fine to make a mistake. Or somebody going through a panic attack might just say, it's okay, breathe. You know, it's going to pass. It's going to pass. Just making them themselves realize that it's not a permanent condition, and it will pass. And that temporariness and that impermanence, that realization that it's impermanent and it's for some minutes or hours, it's really helpful to, you know, just put our vision outside that emotional situation.
Also, how important is it? So, for example, we all have emergency contacts, right, on our phones, which we understand to be usually in that, okay, there's an accident, okay, there's like, you know, something. But how important is it for people actually? I'm just wondering, because we're talking about how that sometimes when you're out in the public and something like this happens, I may not feel comfortable asking for help, because asking for help is the first issue, isn't it, in mental wellness, that people don't ask because they just can't. It feels too much to ask for help. So I was wondering, should we also try and have emergency contacts for our mental wellness, so that if nothing else, if that person is not available physically, then I know that maybe talking to this person, even on a call, would be helpful? Like, I was just wondering.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and I somehow missed this. And it's a wonderful point you made. And talking to your loved one or your best friend or your friend or you know, anyone you think you can be trusted with this information, it's going to really help. Our emotional well-being is heavily dependent on the quality of our social circles anyways.
Right.
So having good relationships is going to be an asset no matter what. And in this moment, just calling somebody and telling them that, you know, I'm going through this, can you help me? Half of the panic probably will go in that moment,
Right.
or some part of the panic, if not half.
So basically, one of the recommendations that, as I have experienced my own anxiety attacks at certain moments when I have been out for work, sometimes I've been out with in a public transport. That's also the reason I think this was very important. At least this is something that I can say it, and I actually always do it, is always carry a bottle of water. Because if you can't do anything else at that moment at all, then I think just taking a sip along with breathing, I think is one of the best things that can be done. One of the most immediate things that can be done. We all, like as women, for example, we are used to carrying pads or tampons with us because you never know. Sometimes, you know, your body can be in a certain state and you end up having. So it's like that immediate thing. That's my recommendation more than anything else, actually, to have a bottle of water, no matter how small it is, to carry you. Anyway, drinking water is a good thing, but I think when you're also experiencing emotional distress, it usually helps. And the rest, obviously, Anjali has already explained succinctly that these are things that can be done, not just to help ourselves, but especially to help others, to hold space for people around us. And this is not just for friends and family, it could be somebody that you see. You can always extend a hand of help, because sometimes all that a person needs in that moment is just a reassurance that it's going to be okay. Thank you for watching this episode of The Print Mind Over Matter. If you have recommendations or suggestions about topics that we should be dealing with, please do leave that in the feedback section. Thank you so much.